Hi, welcome to the Saxton Speakers Bureau Meet the Author Series 1, Episode 2. I'm your host, Carol Pedersen, and my guest today is Nadine Champion, author of 10 Seconds of Courage, a brilliant read about her life story and her ongoing daily commitment to embracing courage and facing fear. Please join me in welcoming Nadine to our meeting. Hi,
Hi, Carol.
how are you?
I'm so good. How are you today?
I'm really well. It's good to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Yeah.
Great.
I like your
Thanks for
glasses.
joining me today. I'm so excited to talk about your book.
Oh, thank you. It's good to actually see you.
Are you still
Oh no,
there?
what's happening? Yep.
Froze for a second. So,
Oh,
you come up. I realize after rereading your book for the second time, Nadine, how often I think about being courageous and how I have a 10-second deadline.
do
Here it
you?
is. Yeah, and
Fantastic.
we recently moved offices. And I also moved house. So I lost my copy of your book somehow in those moves. And I, earlier this week, I was like, I got to reread it before I meet Nadine. I don't know what to do. And Tammy's like, go to the North Sydney Library, which I did. I haven't been in a library and
Oh
taken out a book
wow.
in probably 25 years. So yeah,
Really?
exactly. So yeah, that's part of the story,
Wow.
like don't stop at any, don't let obstacles get in the way. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions because this book was first published in 2017.
Been a few years.
Yeah, yeah. So I want you to sort of think back to when you were starting to imagine writing the book. And can you tell us about why you chose to write 10 Seconds of Courage?
I had always had a dream when I was in high school. I don't know about you, about wouldn't it be great to write a book one day? In year seven English class with Mr. Gillette, I was thinking, oh, I'd love to write a book one day. But then I found from
Totally.
my boy.
Keeps freezing. I need to move into another room.
Okay,
Um, yes, I've always wanted to write a book. You've done it. I haven't, because I think we're both avid readers.
clearly. Yeah. The thing that happens so often, I think, for people is we have these dreams when we're kids or in school or university or in our 20s. We have these dreams and we forget about them because maybe the opportunity doesn't present itself, or it's not the first priority in our lives.
Yeah.
So there is plenty of things that we used to hope for ourselves that we forgot about. And part of my process has been learning to dream again, and learning to reignite those things that I wanted for myself when I was younger. Why did that happen? Because when I got cancer, 8 years ago, all of a sudden I started to think, what if I don't get the chance to do these things?
Right. And so do you think that your uh, book, 10 Seconds of Courage, has accomplished what you were hoping to do in the first, like when you thought about writing it?
Well, yeah, I mean, after I was sick 1 year later, I got the opportunity to do a TEDx talk, and I was not a professional speaker. I hadn't done any public speaking since I was in high school. So it wasn't something I thought of as a profession. I just really genuinely wanted to share this concept of 10 seconds of courage because it had just saved my life going through treatment. And I have a martial arts background, so I wanted to share my Mr. Miyagi with everybody because I found out, when I was sick, they tell you what drugs to take, but they don't tell you how to deal with what's happening to you mentally, emotionally. And that was what I saw was really missing. So I'd learned all these mindset tools from martial arts that I wanted to share with people. Sure, if they were going through something similar, but also if they weren't, because we all go through hard things. So I wanted to share this message. I went and did this TEDx talk as a very inexperienced speaker. They made me the closing speaker for TEDx Sydney, as you know. And I was shocked on stage by how people responded to, you know, the tool that I was sharing with them, that they could use this 10 seconds of courage.
Can you still remember those moments right before going out on that stage? Because
I
in
was
your book,
talking about this the other day. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
Can you describe it for
wild
people who
feeling.
haven't read the book?
So I always liken it to what it feels like to walk out to the ring. So I was a champion kickboxer and Thai boxer. And imagine what you would feel like. It's that feeling of like primary school and everyone standing around going, fight, fight, fight. You know, it's a scary thing. No one wants to be in that situation. And now I liken it with people to, you know, what it felt like when you ask somebody out for the first time, going for an interview for a job that you really want, having to speak up and call something out if it's not okay in the workplace. Like there's so many ways that we experience these feelings of, I call it down the chute. Like you're at the top of the roller coaster and you're about to go, and once you're halfway down, you can't get back out. So
Yes.
when we know we're about to really commit to something that matters to us, where there's big consequences or something that's not easy for us, and that differs from person to person, I think there's that moment where we have a physiological response, a stress response. Cortisol gets released into our brain. Our body will have a fight or flight response often. So you want to run, but you might go forward, and heart starts pounding, blood moves away from our digestive system into our muscles getting ready to run away or fight. So that's how 10 seconds of courage feels when it's something that really matters to you. And that's how it felt for me standing in the dressing room about to walk out to the ring. And it's how I felt standing behind the big red curtain at the opera house, knowing that in a moment I had to go out and do something that I felt pretty unqualified for. Like the neurosurgeon, Dr. Charlie Teo, spoke before me. So I'm thinking, and
I
the Queen's
remember that.
Counsel spoke before me, and I'm thinking, are you serious? Like, I'm about to walk out here and do this thing that I have no business doing. But because of what I'd just been through, I decided that I wanted to take really big swings at life. And my dear friend Jess Miller, who was the person who put me forward for it, I never would have put myself forward to do a talk like that. She had said to me when we were rehearsing one day, sometimes people get the opportunity to write books after these. And I went, "Oh, that'd be cool." So she started the dream for me again. I was like, I always wanted to write a book. So I started thinking about it. And as you know, that talk had such a big impact on me and on the audience live. There were so many people. They gave me a standing ovation. People had tears running down their faces. I had tears running down my face. It was a life-changing moment for me. And, then the next day I got a call saying, would I
Nanette.
like to be a speaker? Yeah.
I
Would I
love the
like to
way you
stand at the podium?
describe her phone call to you and how I could hear her voice when I was
Mm,
reading your recollection of that. But I want you to talk about when you realized that your arm was bleeding after the talk, and just so people can get a sense of how that adrenaline and facing your fear can almost separate you from, you almost become out of your body for temporarily. So can you talk
mm.
about that?
So I learned a lot about fear and courage in my fighting career, my martial arts career. So I explain to people now when I go and talk about the physiology and about the mental process that happens. So things like we have 70,000 thoughts a day. So our brains move very, very quickly, and we get so caught up in how we're feeling and the stress response in our body that sometimes we don't really know what's happening in a way that we don't experience every day. So when I went and did that talk, I explained to everybody that this concept of 10 seconds of courage is worth nothing unless you actually do something with it. So everything I just said was, well, very nice, but pointless unless you take it and use it as a tool. So, in martial arts, there's a link between the intellectual understanding of what you're doing, but you have to physically do it. So there's those two things sit in balance, perfect balance. I'm sure you know the same in yoga.
Yeah.
So you have to do both. And so knowing, you can be well read, you can know all the things to do, but if you don't do them, that's where the drop off is. That's where you miss out on things. So I explained the idea of 10 seconds of courage, and then I acted it out live on stage by doing a wooden board break, um, as a demonstration of what it looks like to do something that you're not sure that you could do. I hadn't done that in about 4 years since before I'd been sick. It was a martial arts move that I hadn't done in a very long time. So it's not about the size of your muscles, it's about your belief system. It's about what you are telling yourself in that busy freeway of your mind. So with a board break, if you line it up and tell yourself, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. I'm
Yes.
not sure, which is how you go into the interview, etc. Oh, if you think an unhelpful thought at the wrong moment, you'll act it out. And what people do with the board break is, I'm not sure I can do this, and then they pull back because they're not sure.
Yes.
But if you believe you can do it, you tend to go straight through, which is pretty
Um,
wild.
and it's also similar to like in preparation for this interview earlier this week, I was like, I'm not ready. I'm only halfway through the book. I need to I'm just going to reschedule because I can't do this. I'm not ready. And then this morning I was like, no, you're not. You're going to set aside another hour, finish the book, do your notes, and show up. That temptation. There's always people, most people, myself included, and you as well, you talk about it in your book, will be like, I'm just not ready. And sometimes you just have to
Mm.
say, I'm ready enough, because otherwise you'll just end up being in the locker room the whole time.
Yeah, and sometimes the opportunities come at the wrong moment. And for me, I didn't want, like, I was still recovering from being sick. I had short hair that I wasn't very good at doing. The last thing I wanted in that vulnerable moment in my life was people staring at me, thousands of people staring at me while I was doing something I had no experience with. So it would have been really easy for me to say no. And I was very tempted to say no. I actually told them I wasn't going to do a demonstration. They asked me to do a demonstration. I said no. It was only the week before that I changed my mind and I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it all the way, even if I'm not prepared, even if it seems crazy. I took away all of the thoughts in my head and listened to my gut.
Yeah.
And when these opportunities come, most people, like you said, it's easier to stay in your comfort zone. The comfort zone is the dressing room. This is what Sensei Benny taught me about 10 seconds of courage. He said most people project their fear of the outcome into the ring where they think they're going to win the title. So they're in the dressing room projecting their fear to the moment they think they're going to need to be brave in the ring. He's a very wise man, my teacher. He's been teaching martial arts for about 65 years. And he has a lot of experience watching people, very tuned in. And what he taught me was what he'd seen people do for decades and decades, which was, I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. I'm going to be brave when I get out in the ring. But the moment when they say, you're up next, and they push you to the door of the dressing room, and in a kickboxing ring, all of the lights go on you and everyone turns around and stares at you and your music starts pumping and they've taped you into your boxing gloves and you're hyperventilating, and then you're meant to walk out and be brave. He said most people use their courage at the wrong moment, meaning they don't use the 10 seconds tool at the door of the dressing room.
That's it.
It's the comfort zone. It's easier, natural, normal, logical to stay in there where nothing bad's going to happen. You're not going to fail. No one's going to see you. And we project our fear into the ring, but most people never get in the ring.
That's
So
it.
you use the tool at the wrong moment.
And you could relate that to understanding your purpose, why you're here, what am I doing, and why, how can I contribute? What can I share that I know and help other people? Um, but I love that concept. It's just you need to be brave at the right moment. And if not, you're going to
Yeah.
sabotage yourself.
And it's
Um,
understanding what people do and don't do. It's natural to be worried about win, lose, draw. But
yes.
he also taught me there's honor in trying. And that's why I did the board break. I was prepared to fail really publicly. And if that was how my story was meant to go, I was going to end my talk by talking about the fact that there is honor in trying, even when you don't win.
Well, there's
I'm
probably,
glad it broke, but
and so when I was rereading your book, you talk a lot about, your methods of managing your emotion and your fear and what you learned from your diagnosis and then overcoming that. Do you still practice that all these years later?
every day, all
Yeah.
day, every day. And, I don't physically do the things. People ask me all the time, do you still compete? I'm like, no. I'm like, it hurts. No, I don't want to do that anymore. What I always loved was teaching because I was taught so many things that changed my life by somebody who spent decades really invested in helping me grow. It was truly life-changing. I was so lucky to meet somebody like that. And my mission in life with my life post-cancer, I'm in remission, I'm super healthy, but, I still factor in that feeling that I had when I got diagnosed, which is, what if I only had 1 year to live? I never want to forget that feeling. I hope I live to be 105, but if I only have 5 years, what do I want to do? So my goal is to share as many of these tools as I can with people, so they grow, and it's beautiful. They grow right in front of me. People have done amazing things. One of my favorites is Jess Miller, the one who suggested I do the TEDx talk. Through talking about these concepts, what would you do if you weren't worried about the outcome in the ring? If you had an opportunity to use your 10 seconds of courage, what do you really want? And she was talking about the environment means so much to her. She talked about going into local politics. The next thing you know, I'm in a corner. She became the Deputy Lord Mayor of Sydney at 33 years old.
Wow. That's
You know,
fantastic.
it's amazing. I got to pay it back, pay it back to her, but it's amazing what happens when you have someone in your corner who's teaching you, helping you grow, helping you to shine light on the parts that don't come as easily to you, helping you figure out where you're stuck, and encouraging you. Like, we all need people in our corner, I think, especially after the last few years.
Yes.
And so I'm facilitating whenever I go and speak, encouraging people to talk about what I say in the book. How do you get good people in your corner? And a lot of the time, it's just having 10 seconds of courage to either ask or let them know how much you like and respect them. Why we don't do that, we're all afraid of the same 5 things. So Dr. Carl Albrecht, PhD, did a study, and he created what we call the feararchy. So there's 5 things all humans are afraid of. The first 4 are pretty gross. It's things like dying, mutilation, separation, and loss of autonomy. Not fun. Most of us don't have experience with those, but we all have experience with number 5, which is ego death.
Yeah.
Ego death
Rejection.
is, I don't want to fail. I don't want you to reject me. I don't want to say, hey, will you be in my corner? And you are too busy. That keeps our lives small. That keeps the trajectory a little upward, hopefully. But when you have the courage to keep changing it and being brave and dreaming and asking for help, and the next thing you know, my life trajectory from, I call it the worst, best thing that ever happened to me, my life imploded. And then I rebuilt it in a way that shocked me, using these concepts that I already knew, but now I had a new sense of urgency to use them on myself and to write a book. I got to write a book straight afterwards. And the crazy thing is, I don't know, you would have read in the book, maybe, I think I mentioned it, how the opportunity to write the book came about.
Yes.
The head of TEDx is Remo, and he's the curator of TEDx. He sent my YouTube video of my TEDx talk to Alan and Unwin, and they had said, it's a great talk, but I'm not sure it's a book. But he had CC'd me in on this email, and I read it, and I was like, no, my dream is gone. And 10 seconds of courage, it always being in my back pocket there. I think of it, I call it to me every morning. I set myself up mentally: gratitude, courage, forgiveness, clear sight, good intentions, every morning in my mindset process. So, I went, 10 seconds of courage. And I emailed the guy from Allen and Unwin, and I was like, it will be a good book. Can I come and explain to you why? And he said, yes. And so I walked in there and said, here's why. I told him my story and what I wanted to say in the book. And I walked out with a book deal.
I do remember that story. It's good. Do you wake up still every morning and say thank you before your feet hit the floor? Because what I do is I wake up and I can hear Ben beside me breathing, and I just smile before I get out of bed. And then,
Same thing.
you know what I mean? It's just like,
Mm,
okay, I'm here. I've got another opportunity to do something, create something, move
yeah.
something, help someone. It's
It's
great.
self-awareness. It's awareness of your, the opportunities that you have. And I explain to people, you make your own luck. Some
Exactly.
people are just blessed and everything comes to them, but so often we have to have agency in that process. And that does come from little bursts of courage. I know sometimes people think, oh, what, 10 seconds and everything's different. And I'm like, no, 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 it's not magic like Harry Potter. It's if you think about your life, everything you've ever achieved in your life, and then reverse engineer it. My life changing, like profoundly life changing moment was just sitting with Jess over a coffee, having her speak generally about TED Talks, and her saying, would you ever think about doing one? And I went, yeah, I suppose so. That sentence profoundly altered the course of my life. She didn't mention that she wanted me to do one. She just was gauging my willingness. And I had the courage in that moment without understanding the consequences to speak my truth and go, I guess,
It's interesting because right before I dialed into this call, I got an email from someone I don't know, inviting me to speak at their conference, and I was like, me?
that'd be
Why would I
brilliant.
be speaking? I book the speakers. I don't do the speaking. And literally, I was like, I can't do that. I've never done it before. All I've done is watch people do it. And then I was like, recalling having just finished your book for the second time, I was like, tell me more. I'm interested.
And
Like,
you
you
would
don't
be
have to say
brilliant.
yes,
Yeah.
it's just tell me more. Um,
But you
tell
didn't
me,
block it. And so many of us block things without
yeah,
even realizing that we did it. And if you reverse engineered it, you would see I chose left or right when I came to that intersection without giving myself an opportunity to walk out of the dressing room.
yeah, that's it. Um, this is sort of a big question, but what are you
Great.
most proud of today?
Ooh, I love it. I was doing a mindset coaching session with someone right before this, and she's at the beginning process of what we call changing her thinking, letting go of old wounds, learning to build confidence and self belief, and a better process for herself moving forward. And I wasn't there on the day when I was a little kid that they handed out optimism, and wonderful happy families that gave you a solid foundation in life. I had to learn so many things about how to change my thinking. That's why I know a lot of things about how many thoughts we have. We speak at 4,000 words a minute internally. They say, like, I went and studied because I didn't like my thinking. I didn't like the perception I had of myself. And I, again, had Sensei Benny there explaining to me when I was 20 years old. He said, I'm multiple world champion. I've been in Hollywood movies. I am this, I'm this, I'm this. Not in an ego way, but he laid it all out in front of me. And he said, why can't you have my life? And my internal voice went, because when I grew up, it was like this, because I didn't finish, because I'm not like you. All of the things that we tell ourselves,
Yeah,
again, blocking it without even realizing, you're special, I'm not. And he calls me a diamond in the rough. He picked me up, dusted the dirt off me, and helped me see myself shine. Because I didn't have a good reason why I couldn't have the kind of life he'd had. I didn't want the same, but he was trying to challenge me on my reasons why my life was going to go this way. So he helped me to see it. And he's a very patient man. He wouldn't give me a compliment for about 10 years about my skill set, in martial arts. I would go somewhere else and they'd say, wow, you're very talented, you're a natural at this. With him, I'd be like, "Duh," and he wouldn't say anything. And I was like, oh. So over the years, I started to be like, so is this good enough? Is this right? And I was desperate for him to tell me what I was worth, to tell me I was good enough, to help me understand myself. And he was patient. He held out on me for years and years and years. And he just kept saying to me, what do you think? Do you
yes.
think it's good enough? And it went on for so
I
long
love
that
asking
he
that question.
he waited
Um,
me out
so
until I didn't care what he thought anymore. I was like, it is good enough.
so what I always like to read something from the author's book. So do you mind if I read something to you and call up if you remember this? If you want your life to change for the better, then you have to change it. It's so tempting to focus on difficult circumstances you faced and make excuses. I know there are days when I get stuck in that thinking. I will also be damned if I allow myself to stay there for long. I have so much less care now about playing it safe. I want it all. I want to eat all the cakes and pat all the dogs. I want to live to the fullest with whatever remains. That means taking bigger swings at life and pushing myself out of placid comfort. After what I've been through, I can never be who I was before, but now I don't want to be. I've changed forever, and much of it's for the better. In many ways, I now take a more relaxed approach to things because I see them as somewhat impermanent. I don't hold on so tightly anymore. Instead of keeping my much loved books in pristine condition, I now write in the margins and highlight them. I have a little dance when I hear a good song, no matter where I am or who is watching. I don't care if I look silly, so long as I'm smiling. Spending my money on laughing at comedy clubs has become a wise investment, just like having memorable experiences and making good people happy. Instead of being forever frugal, I splash out and treat myself and others with more kindness and have extra fun. The new me is hungry for life, and that is why you are holding this book in your hand.
Did I write that? Wow.
You did. How good is that?
But that's all very true. It's still true. And I guess what you just asked me, what am I most proud of, is how I changed my thinking from where I started to where I was when I had that life-changing moment, and where I've taken it since is, I explain to people I'm my life's work, and I encourage them to do the same. You've got to be your own life's work, because if you're not working on yourself, what are you working on? So the
Exactly.
fundamental questions I answer with people: who are you? What do you want? Both of those things are basically saying, why are you here and where are you going?
Well, I'm thrilled that you wrote this book, Nadine, and I'm still referring to it every day. I think I've got 10 seconds to make a move. So it
Yeah,
stays
it's
with
like
me.
the time is short, hurry quickly. But, Sensei Benny always said to me, 10 seconds of courage can be enough to start. If you stay in it for 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, you truly can change your life. And, I encourage people so strongly to do that. I was just spending a few days this week with some underprivileged young people in a regional
I
area.
saw that on your Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was, like, pleading with them, very passionately in a way that I don't usually get the chance to, having a couple of young guys sitting opposite me, or a young woman who's about to go for a job interview next week, and she really, really wants a job, and working with her about what to say and how to learn to believe in herself and how to deal with the fear of it. And, I gave her a note to put in her pocket that she's gonna work on, and her challenge is to say the words to the employer in the interview, because if she takes a chance to be seen clearly, win, lose, or draw, that for her could be a life-changing moment. And that's what I'm here to do now. That people hopefully will have little moments in their lives that they decide to step up and be brave. Work for me, works for you. So you know,
Thank you,
hope
Nadine.
people can
And
do it.
if I do end up with a request, I'll come back to you and ask for some coaching.
Excellent. Well, Nanette gave me the best advice when I started speaking. She said, don't get coaching, just be you. Do exactly what you just did. And I would say the same thing to you. I think the best thing we can be is our genuine selves.